Mounting pressure, President Joe Biden is finally headed to Texas following a devastating winter storm last week. In fact, in a recent article, the Washington Post praised Biden's low key, and the White House defended his decision to stay away, saying they didn't want to get in the way of emergency response. Congressman Jody Arrington represents Texas' 19th congressional district. He's joining us live now. Congressman, good to see you. I got to ask you how you're.
Sean.
Absolutely. How is your district doing? Are things getting back to normal? What kind of challenges are you facing now?
Well, the power's back on. Weather has warmed things up, thawed things out. The water issues are still lingering. We, at one point, had half the counties, half the people in Texas with potable water issues. There's still some boiling water requirements, but things are coming back online in that regard, food supply, water supply. So I think we are out of the woods now. We have to look back and, as a state leadership, from that perspective, make sure we have the basic requirements for winterization, have preparedness with respect to rolling blackouts in a more strategic way, get ahead of those things, and then have the power reserves that are necessary, especially when you have 25% of your portfolio on renewable intermittent power. So lots of lessons to be learned. Texas will be better and stronger. I hope the nation will learn those lessons along with us. And we need, we need to make sure that the federal assistance, Sean, is not just given to blue counties and cities, but I represent West Texas, and half the state in the initial round, 177 counties, did not receive, these are more Republican and rural counties, didn't receive any individual federal disaster assistance. That's unacceptable. This president's the president of all Americans, not just Democrats.
I'm glad you brought that up because it brings me to my second question for you, because the man you would need to talk to would be President Biden. My question is, what do you make of President Biden waiting more than a week to visit your area? Does that even matter to you that he waited for so long to finally visit your great state of Texas after this major winter storm?
Well, I can appreciate not getting in the way during while the tragedy is unfolding and as we're trying to get back online and on our feet. But the response has been really low key at best. And I think it has the appearance of being partisan because of the red Republican counties that were left out of the federal assistance. That's the worst scenario. And then we've been in a position with good weather and power back online so that the president could come to Texas for the last several days. So I wouldn't give him high marks on this. And I think it would be good as the president of all Americans to go to the ground zero for this big disaster and to assure Texans that whether you're in a blue city or county or a rural Republican county, if you've been impacted, we are going to come alongside our fellow citizens and help get you back on your feet.
Yeah, there would be some pushback on that because I've covered several hurricanes in different areas, and I've seen the devastation. I have seen leaders, political leaders, including presidents, arrive on those scenes where there's not only no electricity, no power, no water. They are out there in ground zero still touring those areas. But nevertheless, President Biden got a lot of praise in the media for how he responded to the issues in your area. I want to talk to you about this. Yeah, I want to talk to you about this. Some of your Democratic colleagues in the House reportedly sent a letter asking President Biden to renounce his sole authority to launch nuclear weapons. The question here, why would Democrats make this request? But before you answer that, I want to play this for you. This is Senator Lindsey Graham told our Greg Kelly last night about who is in charge. Here's that.
The policy agenda coming out of the Biden administration is beyond radical. So no, I don't think Joe Biden's in charge.
It's a quick bite, but he doesn't think Joe Biden's in charge. That's from Chairman Graham. Again, Democrats calling to renounce sole authority of nuclear codes from their leader, from President Biden, a Democrat. Why would Democrats call for that?
Because they are under the control of the radical left wing of the party. Their radical ideology has permeated and become mainstream because the rest of the party has kowtowed to the tail that's wagging the dog. That's why you get really foolish and radical notions like unilateral disarmament in that case, But we saw this from the outset. I mean, we saw a president take unilateral executive actions that eclipsed all 3 or 4 of the last presidents combined. And he was doing things to ban fracking, to do away with thousands of jobs on the XL pipeline, essentially hostile to fossil fuels in the name of climate and to appease the climate alarmist. He just introduced his open border and amnesty immigration plan. It's horrible. It's a slap in the face to American citizens, and it shows that his priorities are to provide taxpayer services to folks who have broken the law and disrespected the sovereignty of the United States over supporting the American people, especially in a pandemic where we can easily have the transfer of infectious diseases across the border. Again, it's the radical left that is in charge, and leftist ideology is now mainstream in the Democrat Party, and you're going to see lots of overreach, including the COVID bill that we're voting on, that it's really just a bailout and a windfall and boondoggle to cities and states that were broken well before COVID ever hit. So that overreach is gonna come back to bite him in future elections. But it's a sad thing for the country that we're seeing this radicalization and fundamental structural shifts in our democratic institutions in the United States.
Just to be clear, Congressman, to stay on that subject matter, so you would side with Senator Graham that in so many ways Joe Biden is in fact not in charge?
Absolutely. I mean, Joe Biden will be whatever he needs to be to get elected because he's a almost 50-year politician, and those folks are the worst kind because they'll go with the flow, the trends, and with whatever is in vogue. And right now, AOC and defunding the police and open borders and single-payer health system and all these socialist policies and radical ideology is in vogue because they've intimidated the rest of the Democrats, I believe. So it's no surprise to me that Joe Biden is just going to go along to get along so that he can at least be elected this time. I think it puts him out the door in 4 more years, but he's going to take his orders from the left, in my opinion.
I question this, and I wonder if you do too. Why hasn't the White House announced a date for a joint address of Congress, State of the Union? Are you getting any updates on when and if that might happen? Do you question why you haven't seen that yet?
Oh, I think it's obvious, Sean. He claimed to be the unifier in chief. Remember, he was going to bring us all together and we would have a renewal in the spirit of bipartisanship. And what he's done has just been to ram and jam unilateral executive orders that have destroyed jobs, that are going to destroy our economy if you take away fossil energy, which is 80% of the underpinnings of the greatest economy in the world here in the United States. Open borders, all of these things, including COVID legislation, $2 trillion after $1 trillion remains unspent. And you've got policies that are totally unrelated. In fact, the vast majority of the COVID bill is unrelated. It's got tunnels, it's got bridges, it's got arts and humanities, and they're wrapping the flag of COVID relief. I think that's appalling. I think it's deceptive. And we know it's partisan after 5 legislative attempts, bipartisan, to help the American people with $4 trillion prior to this COVID legislation. So why would he want to give a State of the Union address when he's gone back on everything that he promised like a typical politician? He should have taken notes from President Trump, a man who restored the confidence in the American people, whether you liked him or not. He did what he said he would do. He followed through on his campaign promises, not the same for Joe Biden.
I know I'm out of time with you, but if I can get 15 seconds with you on this, H.R. 5, the Equality Act set to be voted on. Overall thoughts on that?
I think it's part of the radical nature of the agenda of the Democrats. I think it hurts our daughters. I think it hurts families. I think it undermines religious liberty. And I think it's a bad idea for this country. So I respect all Americans. They all have the rights and privileges of Americans, but this is politicizing sexuality and gender identification. It is, I think it is so far afield and so radical from American values. I can't believe that even in 2021, under this president and this Congress, that we're even having this conversation, quite frankly.
Congressman Arrington, thank you so much for your time, sir. Best to you and everyone there in Texas. We appreciate it.
God bless. Thanks, Sean.